So I think that is a very scary scenario. So the real challenge for all other self-respecting political organizations is to stop pointing fingers at each other, stop being puerile, and focus on the big picture, which is to get the ANC closer to 40%.
Can South Africa's opposition parties work together to defeat the ANC and the EFF? This is a question that I posed to Athol Trollip of Action South Africa in a recent episode of my podcast, Solutions with David Ansara. If you enjoyed this conversation, you might want to watch the full interview with Athol Trollip. That's linked in the description below. Enjoy. What are the chances of getting the ANC under that 50% threshold? Because the polls are a bit inconclusive. And what role would ASA play potentially in stealing voter support away from the dominant party?
I suppose there are any number of metaphors that one could use, but while you were asking me then, I was thinking to myself that the ANC is like, a world heavyweight boxing champion or a boxing champion that retires and then comes back and then retires again and runs out of money and comes back again. Inevitably, what happens is that, if you've been the world boxing champion, whatever weight division, for a number of years, you're a very good boxer, but then time catches up with you and you get out of shape, and you have the young dogs that are waiting to be born. When they smell blood, they come after you and they take you out ultimately. So, you end up being a loser all round. So I think the ANC are starting to be reminiscent of, a world boxing champion that keeps thinking they can come back on the strength of their past achievements. And I think the ANC's internal travails that they are faced with is hastening their demise. And I really hope that they elect somebody like Zweli Mkhize or Ace Magashule or Didi, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. I couldn't care who they elect at their conference, but I hope they elect somebody really controversial, which will hasten their demise even more, because I believe that the political parties, the major players, are starting to smell blood, and so are the voters. For the first time, I have seen voters that are expressing themselves quite openly and publicly. This afternoon and yesterday, I had a classic example. I was in the town called Queenstown, it's now called Enoch Mgijima, and we had public meetings in the middle of a taxi rank where the taxi owners and taxi drivers were signing up membership in public, right in the middle of the day. Now, I've never, ever experienced that before, because, the taxi industry is a fraught industry. They're always negotiating with government about routes and about subsidies and all sorts of things. And they're always aligning themselves, but always fighting with government. And for them to embrace and have an open discourse in a taxi rank and invite us to come back again today was something that I've never seen before. So I can only think that voters are starting to realize that they don't have to endure whatever hardships that they have to endure now. And South Africans, as I said earlier, have got a propensity to take pain and endure hardship like few other nations in the world, especially poor Black South Africans. They just suffer in silence. And I'm encouraging them wherever I go is to say to voters, you don't have to suffer in silence. There's nothing wrong with wanting more for your kids, or kids wanting more than what their parents have. So I really think, David, there's a combination of the ANC starting to lose everything, and for the electorate to start to realize that they can actually have a different government, and they don't have to endure this mess that we're in. And I think the fact that the electricity doesn't work and that many towns have run out of water, the sewage infrastructure in most Platteland towns just doesn't work, and that sewage just runs down the streams and into the rivers, and that most of the roads are untrafficable. Those are kind of things that start making people really, really angry. Even ANC supporters, middle class officials of government, local, provincial, and national government, those are blue-collared people that are aspiring. They want a better life. They want lights, and they want street lights, and they want a police service that will answer the phone when they need them in an emergency. They want to go to hospital and get better and not die. Those are the kind of things that normal South Africans are wanting that they're not getting, and they believe that if they want it, they can have to vote for it. And I think that will really be the real legacy of Nelson Mandela to this country, because Mandela had the foresight to tell ANC supporters that if the ANC does to them what the apartheid government did to them, they must do to the ANC what they did to the apartheid government. Now, that was the first president of this country who already had a foresight to say that the ANC could actually, even with the best intentions, they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And we've seen the ANC lose the plot with all the very best intentions. And Mandela had the foresight. So his legacy could be to South Africans that if you have a proper democracy, if your government, whichever it is, lets you down, you can replace it with another government.
Yeah, I think that's what democracy is all about, the peaceful transfer of power. And yeah, if the ANC is an aging heavyweight boxer, then I think the electorate is a battered spouse who hopefully has finally had enough and has the courage to part ways. But you know, when we talk about the ANC, various ideological problems there, a highly kind of centralized mentality, very socialist in its outlook. That's very similar to the Economic Freedom Fighters, the splinter group that used to be the ANC Youth League, and perhaps just a more radical version of the ANC. And there have been some noises from the leader of the EFF, Julius Malema, to suggest that they might be open to some kind of coalition. You know, if the ANC drops below 50%, say gets 47, 48%, goes in to a coalition with the EFF, that could trigger some pretty dramatic downside scenarios in South Africa. So what is ASA's view of the EFF? You see that as a threat, and would you rule out working with the EFF in any future coalition?
Okay, well, let me just correct you with one thing. Our party's name is ActionSA, not ASA. You'll remember that Herman Mashaba went to court against the IEC, who put the party's name in as ASA, and he said we're not some failed airline like SAA, we are ActionSA. So, yeah, David, let me just say that, you know, I think ultimately Julius Malema, there's no secret that his objective is to have a reverse takeover of the ANC. He comes out of the ANC. He actually is ANC. Remember, he said he would kill for Zuma, and then later said he'd kill Zuma, and then later he was having tea with Zuma. Julius Malema is ANC. That's in his DNA. And he could easily have a reverse takeover of the ANC. If the ANC gets brought just below 50% and they go into a coalition with the EFF, Malema could become president of South Africa. So I think that is a very scary scenario. So the real challenge for all other self-respecting political organizations is to stop pointing fingers at each other, stop being puerile, and focus on the big picture, which is to get the ANC closer to 40%. And it can be done. The ANC is very, very invulnerable, and we need to get the ANC closer to 40 or even under 40% so that we can put together an alternative opposition government. But, you know, to go back to the EFF and the ANC, Julius Malema has actually shown that he has no ideological blueprint, because he flip-flops on absolutely everything. But the one thing that has defined his political cowardice is that he has refused to date to go into a coalition agreement. So they have these cooperation agreements where they negotiate transactional agreements that suit them, but they don't ever have to implement them. Whatever they negotiate. They don't have to find the budget. They don't have to make it work. So essentially, they probably are the most venal political party in South Africa because nobody knows what they stand for. So I don't believe that South Africa will have an ANC EFF majority because people are talking about that in the street and people are worried about that. So we are hell-bent on bringing the ANC below 50% and close to 40%. And I think the EFF have started to pick up some of their own headwinds because Julius Malema is a megalomaniac dictator. And the one thing I've learned in a political party, and I've been in a political party for a long time, and I'm now in a new political party, is that politicians don't like to be told by anyone what to do. Politicians like to tell. They don't like to be told. And Julius Malema is picking up problems within his own party. And there is some resistance to his kind of commander-in-chief stature that he demands. So to answer your question was about how do we avert that? I think what we need to do is we need to start showing South Africans between now and 2024, where we are in coalition, with ActionSA, with the DA and whoever, that we are prepared to focus on the big picture, It doesn't mean that you're just going to be slavish partners, because that would make for really weak coalition governments where you just go along to get along. I don't think that's in anybody's interest. But what I believe is necessary is for us to relook at the coalition agreements, recommit ourselves to say we have to show South Africans that we can give them something better. And we need some examples, some shining hills on the city that we can refer to and say, those are coalition governments and the neighboring municipalities are not coalition governed, and look at the mess they're in and look at the progress the others are making. So essentially, I'm throwing down a challenge to political party leaders of all the parties that are in the opposition coalition space, is that you better start growing up, starting to learn to collaborate and cooperate with each other, or get out of the coalition. If you can't get along, if you can't get along with your spouse and you have irreconcilable differences, get a divorce, get out of it and go and do your own thing. But stop trying to pee in the tent from within the tent. Do it out of the tent.
Thanks for watching. Let's hand over to you, our audience. Do you think that opposition parties in South Africa can work together to defeat the ANC and the EFF? Leave your thoughts down in the comments section. Also, if you enjoyed this analysis, you might want to check out the full interview with Athol Trollip. That's linked over here. You can also subscribe to my other channel for more long-form conversations. That's linked over here. My name is David Ansara. Until next time, take care.